Recording with the one, the only, Miss Mitzi Perdue on Tuesday, April 4th, 2023 at 6:04 p.m. Eastern time. Guys, if you want to support the show, watch it on Rumbles, click the little red button. That's locals. That's Rumble's version of Patreon. You can support the podcast for a couple months a couple bucks a month, get exclusive content, promo code Tommy for a month free, or you can just do a one-time donation wherever you want. Or if you want, the merch store is back up. You can go get my wild hoodie designs and support the show through that. But with that, Miss Mitzi Perdue is here, and she's going to educate us on landmine clearing in Ukraine. And you're going to take it away while I go use the restroom for a second. Miss
I
Mitzi
love
Perdue.
it. I'm hijacking a program. What could be more fun? Dream of a lifetime. But I think I'm going to give a commercial for Tommy. It's so easy to press that little red button and give $1. Boy, I'm the last of the big spenders, but wow, I'm giving $10. But do, because he's worth it to have a chance to have somebody who, for our sakes, gave up being on YouTube. I mean, he could have just crumbled and not stuck by his principles, but instead, he didn't crumble, and he still won't go back, but he's got to pay his rent somehow. I want him, I mean, I think he's Joe Rogan level skill, and he's personable, and he's honest, and he's a person of convictions and morals, and I just think he really deserves our support. And since I've got some additional time, he introduced me as Mitzi Perdue. Here's my real identity. You ready? I am the Claire Lopez of Salisbury. Now, how did I get that title? Well, I gave it to myself. Those of you who watch Tommy regularly know that about once a week, often Thursdays, Miss Claire Lopez is on. And she is so articulate, so knowledgeable, has so much to say it just reeks of authenticity. And I want to be Claire Lopez when I grow up. So I gave myself the title on Tommy's show, or actually for the world to know, that I'm the Claire Lopez of Salisbury. And Miss Lopez, if you're listening, deal with it. There are two of you, except the first one is good and the second one is a pale imitation. I'm going to talk today about landmine clearing. I've been to Ukraine twice in the last half year as a war correspondent. And one of the things that impressed me there's so many horrors of this war, but I think one of the larger ones is the damage that Putin is doing every day to the economy of the country in a way that I don't think enough attention has been paid to. It has to do with landmines. And this is the most heavily mined country in history. I see Tommy's back, and I can't keep hijacking the show.
You
Darn,
hijack
Tommy,
as
I
long
was
as you
having
want.
fun.
You can
I was
hijack as
having
long as you want.
No, I was having a real old-fashioned solo rant.
You can take it. You can hijack it. I'll put my
Oh,
feet up.
and I did give myself the title of the Claire Lopez of Salisbury.
Well, you should, because that's who you are. So it's not a title. It's as much as it's your name.
It's my identity.
Correct.
I hope I meet her sometime.
You will. You will eventually. I hope I do. I've never met her. Well, I guess. Oh, on the show, yeah. No, I'll have you on the show with her if you want.
Oh,
You want to do
actually,
that?
I'd be intimidated. I admire her so much. I think I'd not have a word to say.
Nonsense. She's a big softie. So yeah, and the links to everything's are in the description for the nonprofit. But what are we going into today, specifically about the mine clearing and children in Ukraine who, I mean, there's no one's ever really screwed harder than kids in a war zone. Like, what a tough luck. You were born there.
Although right now, my sympathies with the parents, because, gosh, I can tell you as a woman, if you've carried a child and gone through childbirth and loved that child, and then that child's your everything, and a hostile country can take that child away and teach the child that you gave the child up because you didn't care about them,
Yeah.
and that your country's horrible, and they're going to be brought up with a different language, different history. It's just monstrous. And as long as you said that you can endure my monologuing, let me
I
go
can.
on.
No, please take it. Run with it.
Okay, let me go on a little bit longer then about the absolute horrors of kidnapping children. You can read in the popular press that Russia has kidnapped 15,000 kids. I have very strong reasons to believe that that number is inaccurate. In fact, I've even been asked by the head of the Institute for World Politics. It's a postgraduate organization that teaches our diplomats. Even they are interested in setting the record straight. The record that you can see in the popular press is 15,000. We think it's closer to 200,000. And I asked the head of the Kyiv region police, and Kyiv is, I'm going to guess that region might be the size of Connecticut or something. It's huge. And by the way, don't hold me to Connecticut. I'm just going by eyeballing it on the map. It feels like that.
Yeah.
But in any case, the head of the Kyiv region police told me that they have very, very good records of who's kidnapped. And here's one of their sources. He said that one of the things that the Russians do when they take over a territory is they know, they've learned it from collaborators in the area where the orphanages are. And they go to the orphanage, they tell the head of the orphanage, you don't have to give up the kids. But if you don't, we're going to make sure that absolutely not one single calorie gets in and they're all going to starve to death. So the kids get taken away. They get shipped to the Far East, like Siberia. And those kids, the odds of them coming back, and we're talking orphanages, but orphanages don't necessarily mean exactly what they mean in this country. In this country, if you're in an orphanage, you probably lost both parents. There are plenty of cases in Ukraine where a child might have a living parent, but the parent might be hospitalized or in some way just not capable of caring for the child, possibly temporarily. Can you imagine being hospitalized, maybe from an amputation or something, and know that the child that you entrusted to an orphanage has been taken to Russia? I mean, just the agony is beyond imagination. It's a war crime on a spectacular scale. And we know some of Russia's or Putin's motives for doing this. And I suppose one of the biggest ones is to demoralize the Ukrainians. But another reason is Russia's population is crashing. Their estimates, I don't know if you've come across a hero of mine, Peter Zion.
Heard the name.
He's worth paying attention to because he looks at world politics from what feels like a fairly fresh point of view. He combines geopolitics with demography. So he's very interested in geography and population demography. And Russia, its population is crashing. This may be like the last decade that Russia even sticks together as a country. You'd like to have a stable population. You'd like each woman to have 2.1 children on average. Russia is, by some estimates, it's 1.6 children. By others, it's 1.3 children per woman. That means that, that there aren't people to take care of the elderly. There aren't people to pay taxes. There aren't people to man the factories. Russia's long-term survival is in doubt, and stealing 200,000 Ukrainian children, it's not going to solve the problem, but it's a start. So they have every motive to do this war crime, and they're doing it as fast and hard as they can. And again, back to the statistic of 15,000, Nebitov says that we have actual names. But he told me in August, that we had actual names of 100,000. He said that the number has doubled since. And the head of the Institute of World Politics is, her goal is to set the record she has a great platform to do this, and she'll be telling congressmen and senators, hey, you got to update the figures that you've been using.
Keep going. I'm in a trance. I'm listening.
Oh, well, as I said, my goal is to hijack the
Please
program.
take it. Take it entirely. It's yours.
Okay, I also wanted to talk about landmines. And I was starting, while you were indisposed, I was starting to talk about what the situation in landmines is right now. And I have an intense interest in this, enough so that I've started a crowdfunding campaign. This crowdfunding campaign, we're trying to raise $300,000. We're a third of the way there already. And the point of it is the oldest and largest landmine clearing organization is something called the Halo Trust. When I was in Ukraine and began learning some of the horror of what the Russians are doing to Ukraine, it seemed to me that something that we civilians can do is to fund landmine clearing. And I want to share with you how I got interested in it to begin with. I remember I was visiting, I was in a police car, and there was a policewoman accompanying me. Her name was Irina. And we were passing playgrounds, beautiful playgrounds. I mean, the Ukrainians love their children, and they've got these really adorable playgrounds. You know, I don't know, like tunnels and gyms and just fun cartoon characters, just not a child in them. So I asked her, Irina, why are there no kids there? And she said one of the specialties of the Russians, when they leave an area, they're going to booby trap it, and that's to demoralize people. But she said they specialize in playgrounds, and they do things like there can be teddy bears or dolls, or I've seen a picture of something. This was something that was left in the high school. It looks like an Apple iPhone. But the problem is, I've seen what happens. It's opened up. What I saw, it was an exhibit, and that Apple iPhone looking thing, I mean, it's indistinguishable. It is an Apple iPhone, but they've taken out the guts of it and put in plastique explosive. And so the person, when they turn the iPhone on, it's not an operational iPhone. No, the act of turning it on causes it to explode. And some poor high school kid who wants to get an education, life over. Yeah. It might kill them, or it might leave him disfigured and blind for life. Anyway, so there I am with Irina. We're driving by this playground, no children. And I had noticed that in none of the playgrounds that I saw were there children. She took out her iPhone, which happens to be a good one, not one of the landmine ones.
Yeah.
And she began swiping through it, showing me the different kinds of landmines that they have. And the Russians will do things like, your town has been liberated. You come back to your apartment and you open, let's say, the dishwasher. I've seen pictures of this. There's like a filament that when you open the dishwasher, it moves this thread-like thing, which will pull the pin out of a grenade. Or a guy who actually, I spoke with somebody who does landmine clearing, and he was saying that one of the most evil things that he's come across is that the Russians are psychologically sophisticated about this. They say, let's call him, I don't know, Andrei, which is not his real name. Andrei and his crew come in to clear landmines, and say they're on a street, there are a whole lot of houses. They check, say, the garage, no landmines, the living room, let's say it's a middle-class area, the living room, the dining room, the parents' bedrooms, no landmines. They come to the kids' bedroom, and there, beside, wedged between a teddy bear and some kind of doll, you move either of those, and and just a minor amount of motion means that the kid's going to be blown up. And they say the psychology of it is the kids aren't going to be as careful as the grown-ups. They're just going to, they're so happy to be home. They're going to go rush to where there's comfort, where their toys are. And then they're either maimed for life or killed. And one of the things that Irina was telling me as she was scrolling through, showing me these different kinds of landmines, is that the ones in the playground, they know exactly how much explosive. And somehow I'm thinking 30 grams, but I'm not sure if that's right or not. No, I mean, that's a number that sticks in my mind. It's enough to make the child lose a foot, but not kill the child. And this is a technique that the Russians have perfected, at least since the time of Afghanistan. You permanently maim a child. That means that at least one of the parents is going to be full-time taking care of the child. That means that parent's not out fighting or resisting or even contributing to the economy. It's the whole situation weakens the medical system. If from the Russians' point of view, they'd much rather that the child live and be maimed for life than killed, because a dead child doesn't mean that the parents are out of commission. It doesn't harm the medical system of the country. And since you're still allowing me to monologue, let's move on to agriculture. When I was there in December, I remember driving by what looked to me like thousands of acres of unharvested sunflowers. And it was winter, so there was snow on the ground and you could see poking out from the snow endless acres. I mean, it could have been Iowa of unharvested sunflowers. Why aren't they harvested? Well, back then, 10% of Ukraine's agricultural land was deliberately mined. And there are two great big reasons for this. Possibly the first is it attacks the economy of the country. The farmer who has, let's imagine he's got 40 acres and that there are 500 landmines there. He can't farm. He can't go harvest those sunflowers because he's driving along in an expensive tractor and the tractor blows up. He's lost his livelihood. That's almost the best case. The worst case is he dies. So that accounts for 10% of the farmland can't be farmed. But the consequences of that, and the Russians know exactly what they're doing. It's their playbook. The Russians know that if they mine the prime agricultural land, 41% of Ukraine's income comes from agriculture. And if you knock out a big portion of it, you're weakening Ukraine economically and easier to take over. And the consequences are the farmer's losing his livelihood. Ukraine is losing the income that helps it pay taxes and have services and so on. And then globally, when you knock out that much land, it actually will have an impact on hunger in countries that depend. Let's take wheat, which is a major crop of Ukraine. I mean, it's the breadbasket with wheat. There are countries like Egypt, Bangladesh, Pakistan, that absolutely depend on Ukrainian agriculture. And so it's contributing to famine globally. I mean, just the sheer evilness of it. Well, I said that back in December, it was 10% of the agricultural land was unfarmable. The statistics that I've heard in the last couple of days from people in Ukraine, that it's now a third of arable land is. And how do they do that in such a scale? Oh my. I always thought that landmines was somebody out planting a landmine. I mean, somebody might do it, but if you're going after it in an industrial scale, here's how they do it. They have low-flying planes that will just disperse landmines. Or another thing, you can see this in the internet. or on YouTube, they've developed these special machines. They look something like a HIMARS system, where, and I don't know how many rocket tubes a HIMARS has, but eyeballing it could be 40 or 50 rocket tubes. Inside each of the rockets, inside the rocket tubes, in these mine lane vehicles, there can be 75 to 100 landmines. So if let's say you've got 50, and I'm going to ask you to do math in your head because I can't. You've got 50 rocket tubes that hold 100. Are we talking 5,000 landmines? Okay, this machine, it's called Zemdilier. I mean, that's the name of, there's the HIMARS, and then there's this thing, and there are loads of them. They can be in a country road. They can have the coordinates of where the prime agricultural land is, and they can just fire off. One of these machines in one day can seed 5,000 landmines. They have their reach is 13 miles. And they just day after day go ruin the farmer's life, the country's life, and global impact. Each one of those rockets, which is going to knock out somebody's livelihood, is also going to knock out the ability to feed people who need that grain. And I was talking with a guy. This was the guy who does one of the people that I've interviewed about landmine clearing. He told me, I asked him, how long does it take to clear one of these fields? And he said he and a team of 2 others, so three men, were working on clearing a farmer's field. Took 3 days to do 40 acres. Now, when you've got millions of acres, he said there's an estimate that for every day of the war, it will take 4 months to, each additional day means another 4 months of land not being cleared. And so I asked him, what's the answer? And he said, Abrams tanks. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, we need to bring this war to an end. And Abrams tanks are going to be a lot more effective than diplomacy or anything else. We've just got to make it impossible for the Russians to keep on fighting.
What other effective way is there to clear mines?
Well, one of the things, I have started this crowdfunding campaign, and with $300,000, we can hire 18 Ukrainian women who've been trained for it's half a year. And here's something that I want you to invite me back for at the end of it. In the next couple of months, I've been invited, and I'm going to do it, to go to landmine clearing school in Ukraine. And I'm going to know so much more about landmines than I do right now. And it's the Halo Trust that's going to be the recipient of the $300,000. They have, I think by now they have close to 1,000 people in Ukraine doing landmine clearing. And one of the super cool things is 95% of the people who are doing the landmine clearing, they're women. And I said, why's that? And he said, because so often, if you're a woman in Ukraine, and maybe you've got a kid, your husband, you're either widowed.
Mitzi just cut out. I'll text her. Mitzi, if you can hear me, you just cut out. Hope that's not my internet. You're back. I can't hear you.
Not now.
There we go. I can hear you.
Oh, my brand new special camera.
My good camera cuts out all the time as well, which is a paradox.
I want my money back, except I think I know what to do. I put a fresh battery in it, but I think the battery went dead because the whole thing went dead. But at least we've got a backup.
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay, I was in the middle of talking about
Yeah, so the reason why the women clear the mines.
yeah, because they desperately need income and there aren't that many jobs open to them. And so when Halo hires 1,000 of them, it's going to make a difference. Oh, but landmine clearing school. I told my friends in the Ukrainian police how excited I was that I was invited to attend landmine clearing school. And they said, but we have a landmine clearing school. You can come to ours as well. So I'm going to go to both. And their approach is quite different. I expect there won't be that, well, there will be overlap, but not that much. Because here's how landmine clearing works in my understanding. The military knows a lot about landmine clearing, but that's not their highest and best use. Their highest and best use is chasing Russians and making life miserable for them. So the police who've been through landmine clearing school, they, as soon as the soldiers have moved on, the police do kind of, I don't know if this is a fair description, but metaphorically speaking, quick and dirty. They do the really obvious things so that you can maybe walk on sidewalks. Maybe you can walk to the store or something. So they're going to do the quick and dirty part. And then they're going to follow on with the military to the next town. And at that point, the civilians take over. And the civilians, Ukraine is, to my mind, extraordinarily strategic and clever about how they're going about landmine clearing. If you're in the business of landmine clearing, you have the approval and the coordination of the national government because they don't want duplication. They want people who are professionally trained there. They don't want the people who are doing it to get killed. And it sounds terribly dangerous, but if you do it right, they know so darn much. They've been studying for 30 years how to do landmine clearing. And I'll give you one example. And by the way, if you want me to stop,
No, keep going. No, please keep going.
Okay. I'm going to give you just one little example of how much they know, and how careful they are. I got to meet a guy from the Halo Trust, and he was showing me some of their equipment. And one of them is, if you've ever seen pictures of people doing landmine clearing, you see this transparent plastic sort of bubble around them. And I thought that looked kind of fragile. I was imagining like window glass or something. Instead, it's heavy. I don't know what it weighs, but I bet it's a minimum of 15 pounds and probably more. And when an explosive goes off, they know exactly how fast explosives travel. I think it's like 450 meters per second. This glass can withstand 1,000 meters per second. So, and the Kevlar that they're wearing, how familiar are you with Kevlar? And even if you are familiar, I'm going to talk about it because I bet lots of people wouldn't be.
I know that it's body armor. That's about it.
Okay, here's what's cool about Kevlar. It's plastic, but it's woven in such a way that it can absorb shrapnel. It's sort of, the best way I can describe it is, imagine 50 pounds of sand. If you shoot a bullet into that and you're on the other side, the sand, because it just absorbs the force of the bullet. Well, Kevlar, on a much smaller scale, but extremely effective, it's woven, and its molecular properties are such that it just plain absorbs. And not only that, it absorbs energy, and it also it resists slicing or tearing. I mean, if I'm wearing body armor made of Kevlar, and Tommy, you got really mad at me and you came at me with a machete and you tried to hack an arm off, guess what? You couldn't do it, because Kevlar has these properties of just being extraordinarily resistant to either sudden or slow impact. So the body armor that they're wearing is really very, very effective against explosives. I mean, you don't want to be exactly on top of the thing, but if you've got, and boy, when I come back, I'll probably amend some of what I'm saying when I've seen it with my own eyes. What I'm describing now is what I've watched in videos and what people have told me, and I think I'm going to be smarter about it after I've spent a week learning, touching it and seeing it. But here's something else, and the information I'm sharing with you now. To prepare for returning to Ukraine and going to landmine clearing school. And by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm very careful to pronounce it landmine clearing school, because I had a girlfriend that I was telling that I was going to mine clearing school in Ukraine, and she thought that it was some sort of wonderful meditation too.
That's pretty good. Mind clearing.
Yeah, I mean, we spent a good bit of an evening having adult beverages, and she was admiring me that I had, thank you, that I had the courage
to go clear your mind. That's pretty funny.
Okay, but back to preparing for it. I spent some time at the Fairfax County Police Department bomb squad, and those are the coolest guys in the world. I mean, if you're a girl, you just fall in love with them because they're heroes. But I got to see their bomb protection equipment or outfits, and something that surprised me a whole lot. They're perfectly likely to wear the complete suit. It takes 7 minutes even to get into it because it's cumbersome, but they often enough they might wear street shoes, and I'm thinking, don't you want to keep your feet? And the answer is that most bombs, there are very few that would just, as they explode, that would go horizontally. They sort of form a V. And unless you're on top of the bomb, your feet are probably going to be pretty okay. I'm sure there's exceptions to it, and
sure,
somebody who spent 30 years in that field would probably be able to tell you a lot more of why that's not 100% accurate. But I think in general, directionally, it's accurate that that your feet are in much less danger than, say, your face.
What is the actual method to clear mines?
I'm going to know so much more about it, but I'll share what I think I know. One of the big things that if you're doing mine clearing or deactivating a bomb, there will be the detonator and there will be the explosion, and you want to interrupt that. And in mine clearing school, you're going to learn an awful lot about I'm told that there's 7 major varieties of explosive devices, and you have to know how to take apart each of them. But tell me if this isn't one of the coolest things in the world. And this is what I learned from at the bomb squad in Fairfax County. They have robots that have articulations that are even greater than your hands and your arms. They can really manipulate with extreme fineness. And the person operating this may be, it's by radio frequency, although it could be by a wire, but they're in a bomb-proof vehicle, and they're manipulating this thing. And the robot, it has X-ray vision, it's got heat vision, it's got regular vision, and you would think that the easiest thing to do would be to pick up the bomb and put it in a containment vessel and take it to someplace safe. But that's not necessarily how they do it. And this ought to be a great big deterrent to anybody who wants to do bombs, because what this robot can do is, since it's got X-ray vision, there's a water jet that I've heard people call it a water knife. It is with such power that it can cut through. I have the impression, well, okay,
they can like cut through steel and stuff. They're wild.
So I wasn't sure I even heard it right
Yeah, they're crazy. They're like lasers. They can like cut through anything.
because I was scared to say that it could cut through metal. Obviously, it can cut through fabric like a backpack. Uh, but the super cool thing about this water knife is it can interrupt the detonator from the explosive. But it doesn't explode, which means that the detectives afterwards can look for whatever they do. I don't know if there would be fingerprints left, but if the bomb explodes, that limits your ability to find out who did it. On the other hand, if it's just water, they they can disassemble the bomb and examine whatever they check to find out who did it. And that seems to be extremely effective and probably very disconcerting to people leaving bombs.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. But I imagine something like a war zone, you'd probably be less concerned with finding finger. If you're, if you find a bomb outside of a government building, yeah, you probably want to fingerprint it and find DNA or any sort of trace material to find out who did it. I feel like in a war zone, that's maybe not your concern. Is you probably know who did it. It's probably the guy you're fighting. I think it would be more about, in my obviously completely unexperienced opinion, I imagine it would be less concerned about finding who did it and more about just diffusing it.
Okay, and again, I expect to speak with authority in a couple of months, but right now I think my approach has to be more humility.
Sure.
And it sure makes sense for you to be right, with one possible exception, which is the Ukrainian police are charged with developing cases against war crimes.
Okay.
And that means evidence and records. And the last time which was December, that I spoke with people about that, they had more than 50,000 detailed cases of war crimes, who did what. And, the goal is that these people pay for their crimes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I guess that makes sense.
But again, I suspect that you're right, that water knife isn't what they're going to do. They just want to get rid of the things.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of dark, but I feel like the best way to get it to stop happening would just be to kind of landmine Russia back. Mutual destruction.
Actually,
It's
it bothers me that,
it's a pretty dark kind of lower yourself, but hey, maim your kids.
yeah, I mean, like right now, the Russians have so little penalty to pay for the crimes that they're committing.
And that's
Yeah,
also kind of it's a
I've
slippery
become much.
slope of violence begets violence. And I know that sounds like some hippie naivety, and I'm sure it is, but I think the only way you ever get someone to stop is by escalating it tenfold. The reason why there's peace is because their military is ready to destroy each other. It's not out of like kumbaya. And like I don't like that. It's a sad conclusion to come to, but that's why the war never went hot in the Cold War. It was mutual assured destruction. I feel like that's probably the only way and the fastest way to get them to stop would be blow up their kids. But that's well then and then what are you? Now you're blowing up kids. How are you any better? Just thinking aloud here.
Yeah, but I think I'm becoming more realistic about human nature as I watch this, because again, the Russians pay so little for the catastrophes that they cause.
I don't know. To kind of pivot topics in the last 10 minutes or so is what do you think about, and this is just wild pivot, what do you think about the de-dollarization that's going on at like an alarming rate that the US dollar is slowly is being shirked as the reserve currency? I don't think people realize the power the US has had for the last like 80 years being the reserve currency. Like this is insane. And no one seems to be batting an eye.
I would be going crazy over it if I didn't have my own opposite view,
Okay.
which is, ah, at the moment, there's some huge tensions between China and Russia. And one of them is that Russia took almost, I'm not sure whether it's like almost $500 billion worth of yuan, to be a good neighbor and help out China. And then China didn't want it back. I mean, they couldn't buy anything with it. And so it was just a complete total loss. And that beneath the surface, Russia and China, it might look like kumbaya, but I bet there's absolute fury. Next thing, who wants anybody else's? I consider we're spending like a drunken sailor. We forget that the more you spend, the more inflation there's going to be. But we're just babies compared to what Russia and China are doing. Who would want the yuan when they're just inflating it orders of magnitude faster than we are? I mean, you want your currency to be a stable store of value. You want it to be global. You want it to be big enough to enable world trade. I think that any attempt to supplant us as the currency reserve of the world, I mean, good luck with that one, because we got to be where we are because we have at least a somewhat stable dollar that's convertible. Any of the competition, I think it's going to end up like what Russia did, using yuan, and then they can't spend it anywhere. I think it sounds terrible, and I think it's worth worrying about, and I think we ought to defend our money as forthrightly as we can, including not doing a whole lot of deficit spending, which devalues the dollar. But our competition is worse. And that brings me to one of my major professors in college was Henry Kissinger. Boast, boast, boast.
That's pretty cool.
And one of the things that I took away from studying with him, taking many classes, having meals with him, I mean, he wouldn't remember me, but I sure remember him. One of the things that he taught us is it's so easy just to anguish over our weaknesses and stupidities, but that's half the equation. Look at their weaknesses and stupidities. I mean, look at their corruption. Look at their lack of law. I'm not sure they even value law, and certainly human life means rather little to them, and their word means rather little. I think until they can get a handle on the rule of law, that they're not going to be the reserve currency of the world. They might have little enclaves, but I suspect that they're going to have as much luck with their currency as Russia did with China and the yuan.
That, or
by the
we
way,
are.
yeah, that was quite a pivot.
No. It's just something that's kind of been on my mind.
Well, okay, what do you think of my argument that
I think it's fair.
The possibility is that Russia, it has some pretty huge gold reserves, and it could back it with gold, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, no country will do that. As soon as they get gold, they get tempted by the ability to inflate over your fiat. I think it's a fair point. It's very easy to always be hypercritical of yourself and not look at the weaknesses of whoever you're competing against, which is probably a good thing. It keeps you sharp. But yeah, I don't, it kind of feels more, maybe I'm just looking at it cynically. It feels more and more like the wheels are coming off and we're hurtling towards World War III. It's just
okay. I can certainly share that view, and it's also. Have I ever told you that I'm a certified professional conspiracy theorist?
well, I am too.
Okay, as a certified professional conspiracy theorist, I can see people who don't wish us well, who are in the government, who are just fine with the fiat currency losing its value.
Well, there are a bunch of people in the government that think that we are evil, that this is a white supremacist kingdom and that the Constitution is evil. And I think that we have more damage going on internally than we do externally. We'll always have external enemies. Everyone will always have an external enemy. I don't think we've ever quite seen the level of intentional fuckery that we have now, from selling off the strategic oil reserve, which is literally what developed under Carter or Reagan to fend ourselves off in a state of global catastrophe. We're selling that and we are weakening our own dollar. Like, and we're not doing
And don't
anything.
leave out leaving $85 billion worth of the most modern equipment in the world in Afghanistan for
Yeah,
me to
none of these
reverse engineer.
yeah, none of these things when people, try to be funny, and I get it, humor is levity. But when people try to post, memes, they're like, "Hey, thanks, Joe." It's like, guys, this isn't stupidity. This isn't incompetence. This is a military grade operation to destabilize the existing hegemon so that other tyrannical powers can rule over the world. It's not, whoopsie, Joe filled his diaper. Like, this is intentional. This is anyone else did it, they'd be shot as an enemy of the state. If a foreign power did this, sold off our strategic oil reserves, or just aided and did nothing and was complicit in the de-dollarization process, anyone else did that, you call him an enemy combatant. This is this is nothing less than an incredibly intricate and well executed, though evil, well executed plan to collapse it. Because right now you have the most powerful country in the world economically, financially, and technologically, and it just so happens to be the one that, despite its flaws, also aids developing countries. There also is a constitution. There actually is a Bill of Rights, again, for all of its flaws and all of its slow subtractions from it, is still the freest place that has ever existed in the world. Yet
I'm
they
thinking
want
of
that gone.
I'm thinking of something I read in somebody's blog this morning, which said, don't have any fear of Russia nuking New York or Los Angeles or DC. Why should they? We're doing it to ourselves.
Yeah. But that's, again, it's like there are all these sort of funny takes about, like, yeah, China's doing nothing because they're just watching us destroy ourselves. And like that's all well and good. And it's like a fun smirk, but
But I
then
think
you
maybe
have
the
to sit and
concern is
examine it and
us.
go, this is real.
It
Like,
is real.
and I mean, hey, it's a brilliant form of warfare because, if it's an enemy at the border, you can bomb them, you can shoot them. This is an enemy that you can't pinpoint, you can't find, you can't get your hands around, right? You can beat up a bully, you can't beat up anxiety, you can't punch depression. Like, so in a sense, it's a very eloquent, advanced form of warfare. I mean, I've said it before, I think it's probably going to end next year with a military coup in the United States, and they won't even be entirely wrong. They'll say that there are foreign or that there are agents within our government loyal to foreign powers, and that will stop the bleeding for a bit. But then you have a military coup, and then you've kind of destroyed any semblance of trust in free and fair elections. But it'll stop the bleeding for a couple cycles, maybe a couple decades. But
But I don't currently have faith in free and fair
well,
elections.
neither do I. But this will destroy it for everyone.
Right.
Right now, half the country doesn't. This will destroy it for 100%. But I think that's what
Well,
we're looking at.
let's get into Trump being indicted.
Well, again, this is what I'm talking about. As we're slowly marching towards this, you're going to have some generals, you're going to have some intelligence officers who have been keeping their heads down, and they're watching this and they're going, we are watching the most dire times of the republic. You de-dollarization, strategic oil reserve, military structure around the globe, funding and aiding in this shit. And then we have a this is a Marxist takeover. You don't have to if you're cheering on Trump getting arrested, how do you feel about Trump having Obama arrested or whatever? And if we're arresting Trump for felony charges about money over a hooker, why aren't we arresting George Bush and Dick Cheney for a false pretense war which cost 1.5 million civilian lives, 5 trillion US dollars, and 7,500 American lives? It's You're gonna have some people that still have balls in the government, and they're gonna take some dire steps in the coming years, and it's not gonna be good. It'll be a temporary thing. It'll be stopping the bleeding, like cutting off a limb because you've been shot. Yeah, you cut off the limb so you don't bleed to death. That doesn't make light of the fact that you're now an amputee. I think that's probably what's going to happen. You just have this shit going on. Someone has all of the communication. Someone in the NSA is listening to all of this shit, and they're watching this. They are designed so that no one can have a private conversation. Someone is monitoring this, and they're going to use it. I don't know how they're going to use it. They'd spill it onto the internet. You're going to have some sort of military junta who is either taking advantage of the situation so that they can have their turn at the throne, or they're true believers that the Constitution's under attack and the Republic is in it's and the light is dying.
Tell me, I would have pulled Henry Kissinger on you again. I think this is the most dire time that I'm aware of, maybe other than the Civil War.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I do think that Russia's about to crack up economically. I think China's about to, China, it became so powerful because it was making all that money off of trade. That's
Yeah.
stopping.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to pay Prigozhin to go make trouble in Africa, where they just aren't going to have the money to do it? The Belt and Road Initiative, that's pretty much money down the drain for China. They've had the worst drought in 100 years. They have so many things where, bad as we are, I think they're in worse shape.
We also we also might be in a what time is it? Because I do have another show. I got to be on somebody else's show in 5 minutes. But there is something else that I kind of toy around with, and it might not be that we are kind of two possibilities I'm looking at. It's either that we are simply moving to a multipolar world, which world history has had many eras of multipolar, followed by unipolar, followed by empire, and then multipolar empire. It just that's the wave form, right? Before World War II, multipolar, after bipolar, after 90, unipolar. We've been unipolar for about 33 years now. It might be that it's not necessarily the collapse of the American empire, or it would be to a degree, but not outright. And it's not that we're shifting to a new China centric world. It could be that we are moving to a China America. This might be a new Cold War. It could be a China America or a China America India, China America Russia multipolar world. Or, and this is kind of a more radical and probably less likely outcome, we might be moving away from, and it's happening very slowly, we might be moving away from like nation states in general. Like in terms of evolution, like the opposable thumb or standing upright or fire or written language or agriculture, the multinational corporation is a lot more efficient than I mean, who's Russia using right now? Wagner. Why? Because the fucking free market's better. It just is. We might, and I don't know if that's good. I'm not saying I'm for or against this. We might be moving out of the nation state, and that will take a couple centuries, but we might look back on this in 2,000 years and be like, oh, that's when we moved away from the idea of nation states, and now it's just corporation this and corporation that. It's much more efficient. It's a lot less friendly, but it's much more efficient. That's why we have multinational corporations. That's why you have these sort of citizens of the world billionaires. You don't get bogged down by nationalism. You just weave through the different currencies. One country's fallen, fuck it, go to the next. We might be moving towards that, and then who knows? Maybe that's what expedites our seeding into the stars. There's a bunch of multinationals sort of going out and
Well, if
staking
that
new
all be
claims.
Elon Musk, I'd be in favor of that.
Oh yeah, no, guys like Elon's fine, and it
But
could
I don't
very
want
well
it to be Bill Gates.
no, but it could very well be a third option. It might be that this is the end of the human era. We might simply be watching the collapsing of the not necessarily the nation states, but the Homo sapien 10,000 BC to present day, maybe 30,000 BC. It might not be an American hegemony that's collapsing. It might be the Homo sapien hegemony that's collapsing as we are giving birth to some new weird. Our successors will either be outright AI or human AI hybrids, a la Elon Musk's Neuralink. It could be that we're watching not even the fall of the nation state and the rise of the multinational or corporation or group like a non-governmental organization. We might be watching almost an extinction level event of man, which is, and then when you get into those thoughts, you got to sort of check your ego and be like, is that really fucking what's happening, or am I just losing my mind?
I don't think you're losing your mind, and I have had many of these thoughts, but there's so many forces pushing different ways, and I don't think it's very opaque which way it's going to come out. Here's my prediction. I think Russia and China are going to fight.
I think we'd like that.
Well, but there are reasons for it. A sore point which most Americans don't know. Oh, but you have your invite me back, and do we have time? No, we don't.
I have to go in like 1 minute.
Okay, invite me back, and I'll tell you about some of the things that I know, having been in China and in Russia. Flashpoints that. Okay, 3 seconds. Vladivostok used to be Chinese. Russia took it over. The Chinese are furious about this because there are all these resources that Russia has that once belonged to China. However Russia feels about Ukraine, China feels about Vladivostok.
Okay.
And then also like Lake Baikal while they're at it for the water. Okay, I'm done.
I'll go one more step and say that we might be doing nothing to stop the de-dollarization because the power structure of this country wants another Cold War. They looked at 45 to 89 and went, that was the good times. I think we want Russia to go into the bosom of China. I think we want BRICS to form because I think we want a new evil empire. I think the power in this, then it will be the West. It'll just be Cold War II. It'll be us in Europe, or at least, Western Europe versus BRICS. And the people at the very top like that because that's two powers against each other. All the reason in the world to spend all the money you want on defense, all the reasons you want in the world for surveillance state. If it's not going hot, I think we're going to Cold War II. Either way, I don't think this just ends. It either goes hot and it's the end of the world, or we're looking at like another 5-decade Cold War. Or not. I mean, what do I know? Or it's nothing.
I'm going to vote for the 5 decades of Cold War.
That's probably the most likely outcome because everybody, the demons on both sides, can benefit from that. And with that, Ms. Mitzi Perdue, we got to wrap this one up because I got to go on somebody's podcast. Not got to, I get to. The link to your
don't be late. Bye-bye.
Okay, the link to your fundraiser is in the description. Please send me a reminder text. I'd love to have you back on. We can talk about China and Russia going at each other. That'd be a fun twist. And as always, Mitzi, I love you.
I love you too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.